There we go. So what happens if I forget to close this bold tag? If I forget one of these, well, just everything stays bold. Until you close the bold tag, everything remains bold. There we go. Okay, so that's some different basic kinds of text for web pages to know about. There we go. Next thing we want to do is headings. Headings are really useful. Headings are kind of a built-in way to do a lot of this without having to do it manually. So I'm going to have text that says my first heading, and I'm going to wrap it in H1. This is not HL, this is H1. Save that and take a look at it. Okay. So notice this one tag makes the font bigger, it makes it bold, it makes it jump out much more. It actually also puts it on its own line. Notice we did not use a line break here. Okay, that's another thing that's built in to using the H1 tags. There's other headings as well. We could say H2, second heading. And of course, it doesn't matter what text we put inside these. We have random gibberish. And as long as it's surrounded by the tab, and we save and refresh, okay, each one of these is going to get smaller and smaller. So H1 is the largest built-in heading. It then goes to H2, H3. It actually gets to about H7 or 8, I believe, which is getting pretty small. Also notice I've indented here. Okay, so here I did not indent at all for my HTML tags. The next level in, right, has one indentation. The next level in has another indentation. This is the general style for doing HTML programming. The computer doesn't care, but other people will appreciate it if they try to read your code. So if you need help, and you go to the Computer Science Solutions, which is listed on the home page, to get help for this, they're not going to be able to help you if it's hard to read. So this kind of indentation makes it much easier to read. It's kind of like an outline. Okay, next thing we want to do, let's do some text. Let's play with text in other forms. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to call it big blue font. Now if I go to take a look at this, it's not really going to look all that big or all that blue, right? It's just plain straightforward text. To make it the big blue font, there's a couple things we want to do first. First of all, can you think about why it's on its own line? I didn't use a line break. The reason this is on its own line is because this H3 tag specified that this is on its own line. So if this is on its own line, this has to be on a different line, meaning the next one. If we were to keep going, okay, it doesn't keep putting things on their own line. To make this big and blue, we're going to use the font tag. The font tag doesn't do anything by itself, unlike the B tag, which makes things bold, or the H1 tag, which makes something a header. The font tag doesn't do anything by itself. However, it gives us a place to add attributes, such as the color attribute. There we go. We're turning our text blue. That's blue, but it's still pretty small, so let's change the size as well. Size, I'm going to say, I don't know, let's make it, see what happens. Well, that's bigger. 10. Okay, actually, see, if you narrow down, if you keep playing with it like that, you find out, I believe 8 is actually the biggest size that you can go using the font size tag. No, 7. So unlike heading where 1 is the biggest size and the larger the number, the smaller the size, here it goes more like what we're used to, where the biggest is 7 and the smallest is going to be a smaller number like 1. So we've got some big blue font. Next, let's add some dividers. It's pretty common to see in web pages. They're called horizontal rule. And this is kind of like the line break tag in that it doesn't have a pair. There's no matching pair closing tag like there is for most of these others. That's because a line break doesn't really surround anything. Like this bold, it's surrounding text. So it has an open and a close. The line break and the horizontal rule just kind of stand by themselves. It's a little bit hard to see, but this horizontal rule, put this line right here. And we can also specify, we can play with that a little bit, by maybe that I want a horizontal rule with the attribute with 50%. There we go, like that. Okay, so this horizontal rule at the bottom, and it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but it's half the size of the screen and centered. And no matter how wide the screen gets, it's always 50% of the screen size and centered. Next thing I want to talk about, we're going to be using a lot of in future labs, and that is lists. So we're going to do a list. Lists are a little bit more confusing than most everything else we've done so far. A list has a pair of tags, and we're going to be working with unordered lists. Okay, we have a pair of tags like that. And then if we want something in our list, we're going to use a list item tag. Let's have 2 items in our list. Fruit and types of vegetables. Spelling is not my strong point. So down here, this automatically creates a bulleted list with 2 points, each one being one of these list items here. Okay, types of fruit and types of vegetables. Well, that's kind of nice. What if I want to have a sublist, right? What if I want to list a couple types of fruit under this and have them be indented like you would want for an outline? Well, I'm going to come down here. This is right where I want that new list, of apples, oranges, and whatnot, different types of fruit. And I'm going to create another unordered list. That's a little bit tricky. It's hard to remember exactly what's going on here. Okay, in this new unordered list, we're going to have a list item apples. Maybe a list item peaches. Oranges.